Today I will be demonstrating, attempting to demonstrate how I have made Oroshigane, also known as heart steel. And I'm going to be intermittently having to throw stuff in there, so bear with me. All right, so what this process is about, at least for me, is making, taking steels that we would not typically consider useful for making knives, at least the blade portion of the knives or tools, and making it suitable for making tools and knives out of. Quick disclaimer, I'm certainly no expert on this. I've done it a few times, it's worked really well, up until the point I've cracked the blade. But the Japanese, I think generally the apprentice swordsmiths will use this process to take scraps that they can take from the master's pile and consolidate and make their own blade steels out of. I believe in Europe they do a similar process for converting smelted iron into higher carbon steel. So what we're going to be doing is trying to carburize low carbon steel, add carbon content to low carbon steel. The way it generally works is that we're going to put our feed material into a high carbon environment, which is in this case a charcoal fire. The air feed is sort of well off the bottom, and what will happen is that, in theory, you put the material in and it falls to bits, semi-melts, smelts if you will, at the level of the air feed. And as it descends down through the charcoal fire, it absorbs the carbon into the material, and then eventually consolidates into a dog shit meteor looking blob at the bottom that we will later attempt to refine. That's all assuming that we are actually successful today. Charcoal. As you can see, charcoal is fucking sparky. That is the technical term, I'm pretty sure. Ugh. All right, so how I've done this in the past is that I will take my feed material. It needs to be pretty small. So this is about 10 mil square. It's about ideal. I've done it with nails, I've done it with chains, re-rod, a rear bar, all sorts of stuff. Old wagon tire cut up into small bits. It needs to be small enough that it will fall to bits by the time it's sort of descended past this height. If it's too big, it's not going to break to bits, and you're going to end up with sort of weird looking chunks in your smelt at the bottom. Generally, I'll measure it out into sort of 150 gram units, if you will, and I'll feed them in one at a time every 3 to 4 minutes, maybe even like every 2.5 minutes with charcoal. There's sort of, I haven't sort of nailed a precise time. I don't think there really is one. It's just a bit of eye monitoring, another technical term for you, and watching as it goes. So tell you what, we'll just fucking get into it, instead of me talking. All right. The charcoal's nothing fancy. This is like Bunnings charcoal. I use softwood charcoal that I make out of old pellets and stuff, which is pretty easy to do. Typically what I do is I place this stuff on top, close to the hot part of the fire. Dump some fuel on top. Hopefully don't melt the bucket, or melt the bucket. And then wait. All right, so what we're going to do is just wait, and as the fuel sort of slumps, you know, it's burning away in the bottom, and it'll slump down and slump down. And that's generally what I've been using as my indicator that I'm ready for the next charge. The furnace itself isn't made out of anything fancy. I mean, the bricks are fancy. I just use old shitty Huntley fire bricks. They're not like rated for this or anything. You could literally do this in a hole in the ground. It's not so much about insulating the fire. There's enough air going into that fuel that it's going to be hot in the center no matter fucking what. I mean, it would be ideal if there wasn't flames coming out the side, but that doesn't seem to matter much anyway. Like I've done it, you know, me and Jared did it once with like really bad bricks, and there was flames spewing out everywhere, and it still works because it's sufficiently hot in there. I think the only variable in this one might be the size of our feed material, but we'll see how we go anyway. All right, so I reckon that's about ready for another one. Now these aren't measured out by weight at all, but we'll see how we go. This size, I generally do these blooms in sort of 1 kg starting material masses. Generally you get sort of 800 to 900 grams back out of it, so it's not bad. Now, making charcoal, I use untreated wood pellets, and I use two 44-gallon drums. One just has a series of holes punched in around the bottom for air feed, and then I will stack that full of wood on end, not this way, but like, and jam as much wood in it as I can. And then you light the fire from the top of the bin down. What that's doing is it forces the fire to pull the air in from the bottom. It can't, well, it can from the top for a little while. Sorry, I've skipped a step. Once the fire is well underway, the second barrel goes on top, and the second barrel's had the bottom cut out, and the second barrel acts like a chimney, if you will. That prevents, well, it forces the fire to pull the air in from the bottom. The air can't come down the hot chimney. And so what you get is actually a really clean burning fire. Yeah, so forces the fire to burn from the bottom, pull the air from the bottom up. You get a really nice clean burn, which is good if you're in an urban environment like I was. And then pretty much I just sort of watch the fire. It's a sort of couple of hours to burn down. And what I'm watching for is the fire reaching the bottom, or at least the embers at the bottom. And I check through, I have about 8 little holes punched in around the bottom. And when I can see embers at a hole, I'll block that one hole and then just sort of let it work its way right down to the bottom. Once it's got to the bottom, plug all the holes, take the chimney off the top, and smother the fire, put a lid on it, and choke the air supply off completely. And then that forces the fire to take its volatiles. It burns up everything else in the within the chamber, you know, all the leftover oxygen, fuel, thank you. And then I just leave it die down overnight. And then in the morning, go back and check, and you've got, if you start with a barrel full of wood, you end up with at least a half a barrel full of charcoal. And if you get your pellets for free, it's free fuel. I'm trying to feed this stuff in as close as I can to the air supply, which is going to be the hottest part of the fire, obviously. If you can make your own charcoal and source scrap steel, then it's all free and it's just your time. And if it fails, you can cook barbie sausages on the charcoal later on. So, oh, okay, yeah. So with the charcoal, you want it to, you want it roughly the same size so that it burns at an even rate. You don't end up with a big chunk of charcoal sitting in the bottom somewhere. So, yeah, that's all. So another point about having that air feed up where it is and not at the bottom or pointing at the bottom is that your material is going to collect in the bottom. And if you've got an air feed shooting straight at it, the oxygen's going to take all your precious carbon away. Might be a way to make, you know, a low carbon iron if you're after it. But if you try to make steel, you don't want that. Now, from what I've read and sort of found is that what you get out of this is a very simple steel. It's iron, potentially a lot of carbon, and very little else, unless you've got, I don't know, a constituent in there that is stubborn and doesn't go away. So if you're into doing making hamon on your knives, this stuff is really good for it. It seems to really like being quenched in water, which is a scary fucking thing to do, especially when you put a lot of work into making the steel. But the fact that I think the last one I made I quenched in water, and it got a what we refer to as an auto hamon on it, sort of suggests to me that it really does need something that will cool it really, really quickly. The fact that it's got an automatic hamon on there with no clay tells me that that back is cooled down not fast enough to harden without any help. So you really need to put it into something that's going to cool it really quickly to get a hard edge. It quenches hard as hell. I mean, I didn't have a Rockwell tester, but the what do you call them? Hardness tester files skate straight off. It tempers very sensitively too. It'll easily temper down. So I tempered this at my last one at about 180, and it comes down sort of, it's still above 60 somewhere, I think, based on the files. But I would advise, yeah, starting slow with your temper if you're going to get into this stuff. We're on our last feed, so once I've put this last one in, I'll feed it another couple of charges of charcoal just to hopefully melt everything properly, let everything consolidate in the bottom, and then we'll pull something out of the bottom. What it is, I don't know, but we'll find out. Obviously there's way easier ways of getting knife steel than this. This is potentially one of the hardest ways you could make steel, but personally, I get a real kick out of having made knife steel and a knife out of rubbish, the mystery steel, the dreaded mystery steel. Yeah, like I say, you can get known excellent results using known steels and all that kind of stuff, but this adds a particular charm to the knife, I think, making it out of, well, I know it does because the people that buy them, they love the fact that it's made out of somebody else's junk, or it's got history, it's got a story to it. So yeah, it's the one of the big appeals to it for me. Also, just the process of making it. It's super rewarding. Unless it cracks, then it's utterly devastating, and you need rum, but not too much. What I'm doing here before I'm putting a charge in is I'm putting a little bit more charcoal in here. I just don't want the weight of this material to have the stuff plunge straight to the bottom, pretty much. I want it to sit up here and heat up and melt. So just a bit of fresh charcoal for it to sit on top of. Sometimes what you might see is sparks blasting out of their high, you know, the sparks you see with high carbon steel, the flowery types, you'll see them shooting out the bloody gaps and all sorts of stuff. That's a good sign. I haven't seen any of those. But it's okay. We get to play with fire one way or the other, so it's all good. And then the hard bit, this is sort of the fun bit. The hard bit is then consolidating it into a usable bit of steel, which if you don't have a power hammer or a press, it takes fucking forever. Oh, with this, by the way, with your air supply, it's melted. So it doesn't really matter how far in you stick it, the fire will shorten it to the appropriate length. It will, and it adds a little bit of feed material in, so. Fingers crossed this actually worked. Woo! It's just very hot. I'll tell you what.
The side on the right's a little bit better.
It's hot above it.
Not opening on the other side.
Oh, I'll take the bricks right off, eh? Make a hot mess on the floor. All right, so there's something in there. Woo! Ooh, fuck. Hot. But see how it's kind of fallen to bits? So ideally it collects as a single mass in the bottom, makes consolidation a bit easier. Fuck. But the stuff melted, which is a good sign.
They're all like
Woo.
shiny, yeah.
Shorts, not the best. Right. So, I mean, from here, what I'd be typically doing is running to the anvil and just very gently, yeah, tapping it together. It's not the end of the world if you don't, because you can always do it later. Sorry?
This is basically bloom steel, yeah?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that, yeah.
It's not being made from like a raw...
From the iron sand, yeah. So we've recycled it.
Okay.
But yeah. Yeah, anyone want to hold it? Hot potato? It's got bits of charcoal in it, but that's okay.
So like bloom steel, you're going to have to fold this
Yeah,
over
yeah, 100%. Yeah, obviously you can't make a knife straight out of this. I've done about 3 runs through it before you got to pull it to pieces and clear out the ash. Otherwise it's just full of sort of unburnt charcoal. But yeah, so like I said, get as much through it as I can. And then, you know, another day, you spend the day fucking consolidating the stuff. You're welding it, you're forging it at the fucking hottest forge welding heats you can hit the whole time. Which might sound like you're going to decarburize it a lot. You might decarburize it a bit, but generally it seems to hold together okay. But yeah, it's a lot of work. You've got to, you know, you're forging it to try and blast out all the extra shit in there, and folding it out like kneading dough kind of thing. So there's a fair bit of work in it. But once you're finished, you've got a really cool piece of steel that you made with your own hands. And it just adds that much extra to your workpieces. The knife I made at the moment, I'm like quite amazed at how, you can see the layers in it obviously from where it's welded together, but it's super clean. There's one tiny little imperfection in the surface, but it's in the surface. It's just super clean. It's really amazing that you can make fucking really nice steel with a lot of character and a lot of activity going on in it with very, very simple means. Look, that's a hairdryer and cardboard and masking tape. Like again, you don't need these kind of bricks. You can do it with any fucking brick or a hole in the ground. Charcoal, buy it from Bunnings, make it yourself. You could probably do it with coke. Don't know, I can't see why not. You couldn't do it with gas, because remember you need the charcoal for the carbon. This is what's adding the carbon to your material. So, but charcoal is readily available. There's sausages over there. We could just stick them in here and they'll cook faster, a bit more flavor. But yeah, so this is my picture. Anybody? Yeah, cool. All right, sweet.